Hi everyone. Since we're talking about the principle of alignment, I want to show you a tool with inside InDesign that I think is going to make your life a little bit easier when it comes to aligning things. And it's the Align panel. And you get to the Align panel by basically selecting any object, one or more, and you can come down here and you'll see Align. All right. You can also get to it by going up to Window and then dropping down to Object and Layout and choosing Align. It'll give you a free floating panel if that's what you like. All right, I'm going to deselect that for right now. All right, so the way that Align works, so for example, let's select all three. And in this particular case, I have three objects selected. And when I come to my properties panel, you'll notice Align is now opened up. And by the way, anytime you have more than two objects selected, it's going to give you the distribute objects as well. But we'll talk about that one in just a second. So for alignment, I have all these different options right here. And the first one we come to is Align left edges. And with Align left edges, what InDesign does, it looks at which object out of all the ones that you have selected is sitting to the farthest left. And based upon that, it's going to align the other objects to it. So if I select on that, notice how these two will shift to the left to line up with the left edge of this object. Okay, so our next one is Align horizontal centers. And basically what it's going to do is it's going to take a look at the objects you have selected and then align them horizontally. Again, that's from left to right. And so based on this, it's going to align the outer ones to the center point of the one in the middle. Okay, so now they're all perfectly centered right down the middle. And of course, the next one is the Align right edges. So it's out of the object selected, InDesign is going to see which object is sitting to the furthest right and is going to align the other edges to that object. Okay, let's go to the next page and let's talk about the other ones. All right, so in this page, same thing. Let's select all our objects we want to have selected. And again, you don't have to select everything, just the ones you want to move. All right, so whenever we select our objects, we'll come over here, and the next one we're going to choose is Align top edges. And in this particular case, InDesign is going to see which object is sitting at the highest, this topmost edge, which will be this one right here. And it's going to align all the other objects to it. So if we click on that, there you go. It aligned to the object who is sitting at the highest. Now, the next one is the Align vertical centers. So looking up and down, it's going to align the objects along all their center points. So if you were to draw a guide right through the middle, it would end up right there. And then, of course, finally, you have Align objects to the bottom edges. So again, it's looking to see which object has the bottommost edge, and it's going to align all other objects to it. All right? Okay, so let's go to our next one. Let's talk about distribution. Now, distribution isn't the same thing as alignment. When we talk about distribution, we're talking about the space between elements. And so what InDesign does, it's going to have you select 2 points of reference for distribution. So for example, let's say that I want to center this block so it's evenly spaced between this top one and the bottom text box. So the first thing I need to do is I need to move these to where I want them to be, because these become my reference point. Whenever I select all three, InDesign is going to look at all three objects and figure out how to properly move this center piece to be evenly distributed between the top object and the bottom one. So with all three selected, I'm going to come over here to distribute objects, and because I'm dealing with the up and down, I'm going to choose distribute vertical centers. Okay, now based upon that vertical center, I'm going to do that. What it's done is it looked at the center of this object and the center of this object. And it's going to make sure that the space from this center to this center is the exact same as the center from here to the center of the object below it. Okay, and you could play around with the top and the bottom as well. This particular one just happens to be the one I used most often. Let's go to our next page here. So same thing here, but this time we're going to distribute the horizontal centers. So what I do is I move my outer objects to where I want them to be, because again, these become my reference points that InDesign is going to use to calculate the space in between all the other objects. So with that, I select all of them. Then in distribute objects, I come over here and I click on distribute horizontal center. And again, it's looking at the center of each object. So if I were to draw guides from the center of this object to the center of this object, that space is the exact same between this center and that center, this center and that center, and this center and that one. Okay, so all that space has been evenly distributed across those objects. And again, if you want to, you can play around with the other ones. Now, the last thing I want to show you is this align option right here. Now, you can always choose to align objects based upon the selection, which is what I have, or if you click on it, you can align it to a key object, margins, align to page, or align to spread. So for example, let's say that I wanted to put all these objects at this top margin right here. Well, instead of moving one object up and then aligning everything else to it, what I can do is select all my objects from here. I can select align to margins and then come over here to my align to top edges. And when I do, it pushes it all the way to the top margin. Now, if I wanted to go a little bit further, I could go from margins to align to the page. And the page is always going to be your trim marks, which is basically the edge of the page. It's the same thing. Okay. And again, you don't have to have all objects selected. Whenever you're doing that, you can simply select one. So let's say I want this object to be in the center of the page. Okay. So right now it's set to align to page. I can choose this, and it's at the center of the page up and down. If I want to put it in the center of the page horizontally, then I can click on the Align Horizontal Center. Okay? And again, because it's set to align to page, it's going to move it based upon the page measurements. All right, so I'm going to put this back to Align to Selection. All right, and that's how easy it is to use that tool as you're moving objects around.